Okay, so Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is now theoretically a game that exists. I've never done anything here other than just talk about the tabletop game, but since this is so related and I just felt the need to talk about it, I decided I would talk about Bloodlines 2, the sequel to my favorite game. Back in 2019, I guess it was, when I built my computer, when I built this computer, I don't know if that's on the camera. Yeah, it is. When I built this computer, I built it. I've modified it a bit since then. I built it to play 3 games, okay? 3 games that I wanted to play. Those 3 games were The Outer Worlds, which was then released exclusively to the Epic Store, so I didn't buy it for almost 2 years, and when I did finally play it, it was a massive disappointment. Cyberpunk 2077, which did come out in 2020, like all 3 of them were supposed to, which was one of the most disappointing game launches I've ever gone through in my life. And then Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. That was the one that I was most excited for. If Cyberpunk and Outer Worlds had never come out, I would have been a little sad, but I would have been okay with it. But Bloodlines 2, that was the one that I cared about. And now, like 6 fucking years later, it finally came out. And I took a couple days off work to play it. And I just finished it about, 30 minutes ago. Let me actually see how long it took me. I think around 20 hours. I'm going to open up Steam. 21 hours. That was how long it took me to play through it. I did a fair amount, maybe half-ish of the side content available. If you really wanted to burn through and just only do the story, you could probably do it in around 15 or 16 hours. I mean, pretty much the whole reason that I got into Vampire the Masquerade was because of the first Bloodlines game. Very interested to play the sequel. And my overview, like just the in a nutshell review, this game is not very good, and I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone at full price. I wouldn't recommend it as a game in a vacuum. I wouldn't recommend it as a Vampire the Masquerade game necessarily, not at full price anyway. And I certainly wouldn't recommend it as a sequel to Bloodlines, because this is not a sequel to Bloodlines. This is not an RPG. It's not a role-playing game in any way, shape, or form, which is not like terribly surprising. But you had some hope that maybe. I remember reading like devlogs from the Chinese room, and them talking about we're trying to add more RPG elements. That's a fucking joke. This game has no choices, and I know RPG is one of those terms that a lot of people have very different opinions about what that term means. There are some people who are very wrong about it, but I don't think there's anyone who would. I can't really envision anybody, even the kind of people who will come in and like argue like, oh no, like JRPGs, like Final Fantasy, those are also real role-playing games. I don't even think those people would stick up for this game. The game that I played right before this, I finished playing just a couple days ago. RoboCop Rogue City. I almost said Rogue Trader, which would be a very different thing. But RoboCop is a first-person shooter where you play as RoboCop, surprisingly. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that that game has more RPG elements in it than the Vampire game. First of all, you have more options to customize your character in that game. Like, you can design your character you can design RoboCop to play in pretty different ways in terms of like what type of abilities his guns have. I mean, it's a first-person shooter, and so you're always shooting people. You also have a lot of role-play stuff in that game. Like, a lot of the RoboCop game, I mean, relatively speaking. A lot of that game is like walking around the city doing RoboCop stuff, talking to reporters, right? Helping people find their missing cat, giving out parking tickets, citing people for like public drinking. Like, that's a lot of what you do in that game. You spend a lot of that game wandering around. There's a whole side quest in that game where you have to go through the police station and get people to sign someone's get well card, right? There's a whole subplot about like trying to get this guy to give up drugs. There's a lot of stuff in that game that feels like you are genuinely playing the character of RoboCop, and that you are making little, minor choices in the story more so than you ever do in this Vampire the Masquerade game, which is ostensibly, and only ostensibly, a sequel to Bloodlines, which is, one of the more intense and deep role-playing games, like 3D role-playing games that has ever been made. There's a long history of video games where like the sequel or one of the sequels becomes like this sort of dumbed-down game that's been simplified for the normies, as Tolly would say. That happened to Fallout, it happened to Deus Ex, it happened to from System Shock to BioShock, it happened to Mass Effect, it happened to Dragon Age, but all of those games feel closer. I mean, I'm not like BioShock feels more like a genuine sequel to System Shock than this game feels like a genuine sequel to Bloodlines. Because other than being in the same setting, it really has nothing in common with it in terms of gameplay. I'll give you what this game feels like in a nutshell. You're given a quest, which is you need to go talk to Steve. I'm not going to spoil anything about the story. You need to go talk to Steve. So you walk across the entire city. Takes you about 2 minutes to talk to Steve. And there's a guy at Steve's door that says, you can't go through this door until you solve a dialogue puzzle. So you go through the dialogue puzzle 4 different times until you finally pick the correct answers. And then he lets you through the door. And then there's a guy at the next door who says, you can't go through this door until you do me a favor. I need you to go talk to Frank. I need you to go talk to Jimmy, and I need you to go talk to Charlotte, who are all in opposite corners of the map. So then you run to these different corners of the map. You got to solve another dialogue wheel thing with this guy. You got to do another side quest for her. Over here, you got to kill 15 guys. Then you finally come back and like, okay, I'll let you through the door. And then as you go through the door, Steve is like, whoa, I'm not talking to you yet. Kill all these guys first. And he runs away. So you kill all those guys, you go through, and then Steve is like, whoa. I'm not going to give you the answers. I do know them. I definitely know the answers, but I won't tell you. But you know who will? That guy out there. And you see a guy and he's like, it's me, I have the answers. And he runs and you chase after him. And he's like, whoa, first kill all these guys. I'm going to hide behind this door. And then you sneak past the guys. You're like, I'm done killing these guys. I just need to talk to this guy. I just need to talk to the mystery man. You sneak past all the enemies. You try and open the door and it says, you can't open this door because there are enemies nearby. You're not allowed to progress to the next part of the mission until you kill every enemy. The enemies that do not give you any meaningful amount of experience, do not drop loot, do not drop money, but you have to kill all of them. Even if you sneak past them, you are still required to kill every enemy to progress. That is this game in a nutshell. It is at every point, at every stage, deliberately wasting your time. That's all it is. Like, it took me 21 hours to finish this game. 5 hours of that is the actual game, because most of what you do in this is not even the combat. The combat, for the most part, I mean, there's a lot of it, but it's pretty quick. It's pretty fast-paced. Most of what you do in this game is just running around. Like, they have one city map. The number of times that I had to run back and forth across this entire city map was making me want to fucking vomit. And I didn't even do most of the side quests, which all the side quests are just running around, because every quest is just running back and forth between locations on the map. Over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's the game. There are no skills, so you never make skill checks in dialogue, you never pick a lock, you never hack a computer, nothing. There's no skills of any kind. There's no stealth in this game. There are like 2 sequences where you're forced to do stealth, right? So it's like, oh, you don't like stealth? Well, in this sequence, you have to do it. And if you make a mistake, we just restart you from the beginning every time. This game also doesn't have any manual save and manual load options at all. The cat is trying to get his food. Sorry if you can hear that. But because there are no manual saves and no manual loads, you have no ability to bypass checkpoints, meaning that you could get to the very end of a situation where you're like, I took 5 minutes to get here and I made the one mistake of getting spotted. I have to go back to the beginning. You can't like save as you go through. There's no options like that. There's also no ranged combat in this game. Almost none of your abilities work at range. And you can sort of shoot people with guns, although it's often hard to even find, much less pick up and use guns in the midst of combat, because the combat does tend to be very fast-paced. And even your powers that do work at range don't work at range very consistently, because you're often being swarmed by enemies. And enemies hit you, and if you take any damage, it cancels a power. So if you have a power that takes like half a second to cast, or in some cases 3 seconds to cast, but you're being hit by attacks from melee characters who are swarming you constantly, and every time you get hit, it cancels the action, you can't even get the powers off. You cycle through pretty fast, and eventually you figure out like the only powers that are useful in this game are the ones that are pretty much instant cast, and primarily the ones that allow you to just teleport away. I'll talk about powers separately. I'll talk about powers in a minute, because that's a whole other thing. A couple things I want to talk about. Okay, first of all, the city. The entire game takes place in this one city map. And if there's one thing I could change about this game, other than completely, altering like the design of it, it would be making this map smaller. This map is bigger. It feels like it's bigger than like all of the different city location maps in the first Bloodlines games, if they were all stuck together into one big map. It's a pretty big map. And yet there is almost nothing in it. It's almost completely empty. There are some collectibles, which, unless you're someone who likes collectibles, there's zero purpose to collect them. You can run around collecting blood resonances, which is pointless. I'll talk about that separately. And you can run around and just fight anarchs forever if you want to, but there's no point because they don't really give you a meaningful amount of experience. You don't need experience in this game. The story hands you out way more than you need. They don't drop loot, they don't drop weapons, they don't drop money, they don't drop anything. So there's no reason to fight them. The map is just there to, again, deliberately waste your time. It's big so that you have to run across it over and over again and eat up time. Every single mission in this game involves you running across the city at least once, but oftentimes like 7, 8, 12 times you're making big treks across the city for a single mission. And it takes anywhere from maybe 30 seconds if you're lucky to upwards to like 2 minutes and sometimes longer to get from point A to point B, especially when you have to go play as Fabian, who can't climb up walls and jump off things. So like the main guy, Fire, can spiderweb across the city, but Fabian has to walk. And they do give you like a quick run thing, but still it is really time consuming to run around the city. And that's like, you're just constantly doing it. You could fit all the locations in this city down into like one tiny strip like they have in, like the Ocarina of Time. And the city does look really nice, but it just doesn't really have a spooky vibe to it. Like, I wasn't going to say Bloodlines in general, but it's mostly Santa Monica, the first city, has that real gothy vibe that's just very cool. And it does not exist here. Like, that vibe is not present. This city just feels like a regular city. It feels like it could be a city in any other video game, in Spider-Man or whatever. It just happens to be at night. It just doesn't have that spookiness to it. Not only are you having to run across the city constantly, but there's no emergent gameplay in the city, really. There's nothing to really do. And it's not cool. Like, when you would run around Santa Monica, it would only take you a few seconds to run from one side of the city to the other. And you had the atmospheric music and all this cool stuff going on. There were lots of little nested side quests that you would stumble into. But there's nothing like that here. It's just a giant empty city. And running across it, and since most of what you do in this game is run back and forth across this city, it really sucks that there's nothing to do in it. There is also a serious problem in this game with fire. This is very similar. It's not as bad as Fallout 4, but it's similar to Fallout 4, which is that fire really has no personality. When shit would start happening in the plot, you have Fabian, the Malkavian who's in your head, who's talking to you, because at the beginning of the game, you Diablerize him, and he's trying to solve a mystery of how he got Diablerized and who the serial killer he was tracking was, and you're trying to solve the mystery of how you got this magic tattoo on you that's controlling you. And so you're working together trying to solve these mysteries. And like, as you get to later parts, you got Fabian talking in your head. He has opinions on things that are happening. You stop to talk with like Tolly, who I'm not sure exactly what Tolly's job is. They never specify. I think he's like the harpy or something. You talk to like Sophia and these other NPCs, and these people have clear personalities, and the things that they do make sense. There's a sequence where you're arguing with Katsumi and like trying to get her to agree with you and like help you with something, and she's like not doing it. And it's frustrating, but it makes sense because her character makes sense. And it's interesting that all the NPCs pretty much in this game are very well written. They all have personalities that are clear, that are communicated to you early, that are consistent, and their actions make sense. Whether you agree with them or like them or not, you understand what they're doing and why. But that is not the case for you, because Fire's personality is, I'll do whatever the quest tells me to do, I guess. And like he just like bounces around constantly. There'll be scenes where you're like, you're the murderer and you're a serial killer and you're aligned with the Sabbat. And they're like, look, why don't you just go get me lunch? He's like, you know what? Fine. I will go get you lunch. And then you're just like, now I got to go get this person something to eat. And it's like, why is this character so completely devoid of personality? I understand that it's a totally linear game, and you as the player are not able to inject any personality onto this character. Okay, but he doesn't have a personality of his own. Like, he doesn't. When you during the sections where you play as Fabian very specifically has a personality. And there'll be points where Fabian will be like, boom, I fucking figured it out. You're the murderer. And you're like, no, Fabian, don't say that. But it makes perfect sense that Fabian would do that because that's exactly the way that he behaves. But like Fire has no consistent personality. It vacillates from scene to scene totally. So everything he does ends up feeling out of character because he has no defined character. The only personality he has is whatever the writers wanted me to do next, that's what I'll do next. Which is fucking infuriating. And it makes you hate this character as you're playing the game because of how annoying he is. In his like stupid, this guy is portrayed as like I'm an ancient vampire and I've been all over the world for hundreds of years and I know the mysteries of the Camarilla and I'm very well acquainted with the night. But any derpy person who tells me to do anything, I'll just go along with it. You know, if someone tells me to fetch, I'll just fetch. It's like, it's so fucking frustrating. Okay, so the story overall is pretty good. I would rate the game pretty highly just in terms of the story. And the NPCs are very good as well. But the pacing is so atrocious because the game wastes so much time between story beats. And because this game really has no side quest content, like no B plots effectively at all. Every story beat in the entire game is completely focused around the one narrative you're following and the one mystery you're following. There are side quests, but the side quests are totally meaningless. It's just like, hey, can you walk over there and hand this person this thing? Or can you go kill this guy? Like, they're just total bottleneck side quests. But because everything in the story is focused on just the one plot that is going on, and because that plot is so focused, is so like nailed down onto from the very beginning, it makes the story really feel like it's dragging. Even ignoring how much time you spend walking back and forth and fighting meaningless bad guys, there is just so much of like, I get it. Like, I have figured this out. I know what's going on, but you have to wait for the characters to figure it out for so long. And as far as like, it's a mystery, but it's a mystery where I was about to say you can't solve it based on the clues that you're given, which is not exactly true. You can't solve it based on the clues you're given. You can absolutely solve it because I did almost immediately just by talking to the NPCs, especially if you're familiar with vampire lore. But even to an extent, if you're not, you could probably put it together fast. Like, I got exactly what's going on here. Everything is quite clear. But you're still forced to go through the motions of like, well, I'm playing a character who is dense and can't put the two things together. And like, with Fabian, it makes sense because his memory has been altered. So he just literally doesn't remember. Like, he's been diablerized and doesn't know what's going on. With Fire, it just comes off as this guy Fire is a complete idiot who can't put two and two together or can't like intuit anything because he's not written to be able to resolve the story, because you're not supposed to find out what happens in the story until, hour 18. And that's when we reveal it all. And you're like, yep, I knew what was going on for like the last 12 hours. I was paying attention. I understand what was happening. And because of those two factors, the time wasting and the like staggered story, it just drags so much. The pacing is awful. And the fact that the gameplay loops between all the story points are so repetitive and so boring and so thin does not help. Now, combat. It makes no difference whatsoever what clan you pick to play in this game. It's actually kind of funny that people were so up in arms about not being able to play as a La Sombra or Toreador. I was one of those people too. Hilarious now, because playing as a La Sombra or a Toreador is meaningless, because it doesn't matter what clan you pick at all. There are almost no dialogue options in the game. I think there were like maybe 3 that I saw. I played as a Tremere, and I think I found a Tremere, which turns out to be like crucial to the story in a lot of significant ways, which I didn't know going in. But even then, there were like maybe 2 or 3 dialogue options that were like related to that. And those were basically just Fire going, I too am a Tremere. Hello, fellow Tremere. I know about that, being a Tremere like you are, but like nothing comes of it. You don't have any special insights. You certainly can't solve any problems differently, because that's never an option. I mean, fuck, you can't even walk through doors if there are still enemies behind you. You think they're going to give you different ways to resolve a quest? No, that's never happening. But in combat, it also makes no difference. Partly this is because all the powers are available to everybody. It's actually quite easy if you want to unlock all the powers. But the other reason that it doesn't matter is that there are no alternate ways to play the game. Every clan has one discipline tree in this game. They pretend that you have multiples, but that is just not true. You just have one. And every tree is exactly the same. You have one power, which is passive and has an effect that is basically meaningless. You have one power, which is just like a punch attack, like a slash, a basic hit. You have one power that is like a movement teleport thing. You have one power that is crowd control. And then you have one power, which is a bigger crowd control. And that's it. So the only difference between like Dominate and Blood Sorcery is how the crowd control works, right? That's the only difference. Like if you're a Tremere, you can mark a point and teleport to it. If you have Obtenebration, you can point at someone and teleport to them. But that's it. Those are the 2 powers. And you can't put both of them out at the same time. Like you might think, well, moving around the battlefield fast is the most valuable thing, way more valuable than the other abilities. So I'll unlock all the move around the battlefield fast, but you can't do that. You can't do that because they're locked to buttons. So like A is your teleport around the battlefield power, I think A, right? So you can unlock, 6 different abilities that all let you teleport around the battlefield, but you can't have all of them active at once. You just have to pick the one you like the most. You can have 6 different mass crowd control abilities, but you only can have 1 active. And if you think you can be cute and go into your menu and swap between them in the middle of combat to use more, you can't do that either, because these powers do not use a blood pool like they would in the tabletop or in every other Vampire the Masquerade game. They don't share a blood pool. They have individual blood pools, which can only be recharged by feeding, meaning if you use power number 1, that power is now unusable until you recharge it. Most powers have 2 pips, meaning you have to now feed twice before you can use that power again. Some have 3 or even 4 pips, meaning you can only use it once every 4 feed attempts. Which means that if I unlock like the big mass crowd control ability for every clan, and I use one of them, it doesn't matter if I switch around between the others, I still can't use them because I'm out of pips on that. I have to recharge it before I can use it again. You also don't use blood to heal in this game, which is weird, but you have potions, magic potions that just like give you blood that are lying around, which is so bizarre. It just feels like they didn't even try to make it feel like a vampire game. It's like, why do I have potions, but I'm not using my blood to cast spells, especially as a Tremere? It's so fucking weird. The main reason that it's designed this way is to force you into the one and only way that you are allowed to fight, which is you are a Brujah. No matter what clan you pick, you will be a Brujah, and you will play the game like a Brujah. And if anyone by some weird chance is watching this who doesn't know what that means, Brujah are a type of vampire who are like really fast, really strong. They zip around punching people. That's what you will do. Did you, like me, pick the Tremere, a class of wizards who never engage in fisticuffs of any kind, who wear suits, stand at a distance and throw magic spells? Doesn't matter. You don't have any fucking magic spells. You will go in there and you will punch everybody. 90% of the enemies you kill in this game, you will kill by punching. You'll kill very few enemies with your powers. In fact, most of your powers won't even kill people. There are only a handful that'll even kill people at all, and most of them will only kill the very low level enemies. Most of your powers, all they'll do is just crowd control someone. And in most cases, all they do is they paralyze them so you can feed on them. Because what they want you to do is just punch people constantly. This is a melee brawler game, and that's what you will do. And no matter how hard you might try, you will not be able to break out of that. Unlocking powers from other clans, I mean, like, if you want to do it, you can, and some of them look kind of cool. A couple of them are useful. The only really good power in the entire game that I found that I considered to be of much use was the Shadow Step teleport, where you can just blink behind someone and attack them, like mainly for snipers. When someone will be sniping you, you just teleport behind them. So you just save it for them. But yeah, all the abilities are mostly just punching. And the only thing that you will really use in combat other than just punching is your telekinesis power, which half of everything you do in this game you do with your telekinesis power, which is hilarious to me. Telekinesis is a rare Tremere ability that not even most Tremere have, and which most Tremere don't use much in combat if they do have it, because they usually have way more effective combat techniques, like, you know, draining all the blood out of someone, blowing them up, hitting them with lightning, or setting them on fire, none of which you can do in this game. But the fact that, like, no matter what clan you play, your go-to move is punching, which like maybe 25% of vampires in the tabletop would ever punch somebody, and your number 2 move is telekinesis, which is like a 1 in 100 thing that you're ever going to run into a vampire who's telekinesising things in a fight. It's crazy. It makes me wonder if they started designing this game with no intention whatsoever of being a Vampire the Masquerade game at all. I've heard that they were planning to make this without originally intending it to be a Bloodlines sequel, which I definitely buy. But it honestly makes me wonder if they were planning to make this game as a vampire game, and then they got the license for Vampire the Masquerade and were like, I guess we should go read the book and find out what that is, because there's a lot of stuff in this game that makes you kind of feel like the people who wrote it are not familiar with the source material. So I also want to talk about resonances. I'm not going to go into this in great detail of like the actual lore, but basically there are 3 different types of colored blood, right? There's like pink blood, blue blood. Blue blood's a different one. There's pink blood, purple blood, and red blood. So people who have like different emotions will appear as pink, purple, or red. Red is angry, purple is sad, pink is horny. And you have to collect certain amounts of those types of blood to unlock new powers. This is very annoying because the purple blood people who are sad, the only way to get this blood is to insult them, which then makes them run in terror from you, which is hilarious in that you can, and I did it many times, run down the street full speed chasing after a woman who is running down the street screaming her head off, screaming, "Police, please help me. They're trying to kill me." And she will run right past 7 police officers in a row who will have no reaction whatsoever. But if you grab her and bite her, every cop in the city will then immediately turn and open fire on you. They are, I will say, at least equal opportunity murderers. The angry people, if you walk up to them and you're like, "Hey, are you having a problem with the ATM?" They're like, fuck you, and they just start throwing hands at you. And if they punch you before you walk into an alley, the cops will shoot them dead. The cops murdered a lot of people who punched me in this game. It was kind of hilarious. This city has like the most numerous and most aggressive police I've ever seen in a video game. They make Grand Theft Auto Police seem realistic. I've never played a game that crawled with cops more than this one does. There are times when I would look around, like turn around looking on a main street, and I would see 20 police officers on one street. And yet, they would not respond to any crime of any kind until you do like one of the two specific things that they don't like, okay? Which is run up a wall or bite somebody. I even killed a guy in front of a cop a couple of times by accident, by hitting the wrong button, and just like judo chopped him in the throat, and the cop didn't react. I don't understand if that's a glitch. It was so weird. But the reason the purple people are so annoying is because half the time they will just run up and down the streets and they'll never run into an alley, meaning it's impossible to bite them. The pink horny people will just follow you into an alley. You're like, a guy in a business suit will be sitting there on the phone and you're like, hey, what's up? You're hot. And he's like, oh, well, then in that case, just lead me back into that alley behind that dumpster with a homeless guy throwing up in it, and let's take our pants off, and you can just bite him and nobody cares. The angry people will chase you to the ends of the earth, and as long as they don't punch you in front of a cop and get shot to death, they will run in there to get bitten. But these purple people will just run up and down the main street screaming for help until eventually they glitch out and just stand in the middle of an intersection screaming, and you can't do anything. That's when they don't run through buildings, because they frequently would glitch out. It happened to me like almost a dozen times. They would glitch out and just no-clip through an entire building and just disappear to the other side of the city. And you could see them do it too, because if you turn on vampire vision, you have x-ray vision, so you can just see them run through an entire building and end up on the other side of like the city block. And you're just like, what the fuck? For all the time that you spend unlocking these powers, which I did for a while, once you start playing around with them, you quickly realize that they're just the same powers you already had with different flavor. And so there's really no point. And so not only is it a giant waste of time to farm all this resonance, but it isn't even anything that gets you anything good. The only reason I kept doing it was to unlock outfits, because there are a lot of outfits, and most of them are pretty dumb looking, but some of them were cool. And so I unlocked a lot of the powers, not because I even wanted the powers, but just because I wanted to unlock more outfits. So, one of the few roleplay things that exists in this game is that you can swap outfits around for different situations. Like, I'm not wearing this goth fuckboy outfit to go talk to the prince. I'm going to put on a suit, and then I'll put on the goth fuckboy outfit to go crawl around in the sewers, like nature intended. But of course, the NPCs never comment on your costumes, which is unfortunate. So I have a couple of just minor things, pet peeves, or as George Carlin would say, major psychotic fucking hatreds. These are not important things, but they are things that annoyed me unnecessarily so, that bothered me a lot, okay? First of all, I hate that the feed buttons are both triggers. You have to pull both triggers at the same time, right? Like this. I hate that. I accidentally fucked up feeding so many times because I would pull one trigger too fast compared to the other one. It was like so finicky because both triggers do completely different things individually. So if you pull the left one slightly faster, it pulls up your power window and doesn't feed. If you pull the right one slightly faster, it does the like telekinetic grab, which doesn't feed, but also will like trigger. So if you're trying to feed on someone sneakily in the alley and you accidentally hit the telekinetic feed, it instead pulls them, which if you're totally out of sight of the cops and no one can see you, and you bite a person and drain them of blood, even if you murder them, no one notices. But if you use telekinesis to pull them 1 foot to the left, every cop in the city gets to like, they get all upset, they're alerted, and they start looking for you. Complete bullshit. I hated that. And this is what really infuriates me. There's no way to change it. There's an option in the settings to remap buttons, but they won't let you remap the feed buttons. You can remap most of the other buttons on the controller, but not those. The ones that I most wanted to remap. Drove me fucking insane. The little like hand, the like crossed fingered punching thing that fire does is like the dumbest karate chop thing I've ever seen in my life. It's almost as if they sat down and they said, let's come up with the silliest, least threatening looking like combat stance we possibly can. What if he holds his hands up like this and he like does little finger guns sideways, like poo poo, poke poke poke. It annoyed me so much. It bothers me a lot that Fire has nail polish on. It doesn't bother me when you put on certain outfits that he has nail polish because it looks like it fits those outfits. But why is he wearing it with every outfit? Why is it that I can change my outfit, but I can't change my nail polish? And why do I wake up with nail polish? I've been in a box for 150 years. Why do I have nail polish on? Why was I wearing nail polish 150 years ago? And even if I was, how is it still there? Wouldn't it have worn off? The first Bloodline game had hats. This game desperately needed hats, and there were none. Got 40 fucking outfits, no hats. I did not like this at all. The way that you unlock powers is you go around and you ask vampires, like there's one from each clan who's been told, like, oh, the prince told me to help you unlock your powers, so here's a cup of my blood, and you drink it. And you do this like over and over again. That would blood bond me to all these people, right? Drinking their blood over and over like this, I would be mind controlled to obey them. I'd be in love with them. That never comes up. It was just very weird. The voice switching. There's some sort of a bug in this game where about 50% of the time, it happens a lot, when you bite someone, it swaps their voice. So you'll be talking to like a female NPC who looks like a woman and has a woman's voice talking to you. Then you bite her and it'll switch to like a man's voice going like, And I was like, the first time it happened, I was like, oh, that's weird. They must not have recorded like attack sounds for both genders, but they did. They just somehow have it so that they randomly switch back and forth. And you wouldn't notice it so much when you're fighting like the bad guys, because most of the enemies you fight are wearing, like, for some reason, every gangster in Seattle wears luchador masks and motorcycle helmets, or you're fighting like the hunters who have masks on. But when you're attacking regular civilians out in the wild, yeah, they do it too. It was just very confusing to me. It seems like that should be something that they could have easily fixed. There's no option in this game to turn off motion blur. Which, if you make a game with motion blur in it at all, you're a failure as a game developer. But if you leave motion blur in and you don't give us the option to turn it off, I can only imagine two things. One is that you are utterly incompetent at your job. And the other is that you're some sort of psychopath who is deliberately trying to torment people by making it impossible to turn off motion blur. And it isn't like this is difficult. I was able to turn it off by editing the INI file. But, you know, it just makes me... It's one of these things. It's like, I often think about console gamers, people who don't play on a PC. It's like that they live in a third world country or something. They're over there where they're like, we don't have mods. And we don't have Steam sales, and we can't turn off motion blur because we can't edit our INI files. It must suck to be a console gamer. Like, it really must. Diablerie. There's a line early in this game which really aggravated me, where you diablerize Fabian. That's how the game starts. And Fabian is telling you, like, wow, it's so weird that I'm here in your head. You know, when people get diablerized, it's known that sometimes you absorb their power, but absorbing their memories, their consciousness, that never happens. Yes, it does. That's common. That's like one of the main dangers of Diablerie, is that if it doesn't go right, you could like absorb the other person into your mind. There are many, many examples in the lore of this. And this is just treated as if like, wow, what a weird, it's actually a plot point in the game that like, what a weird situation. This would be like if a plot point in your game was a complete anomaly happened. A seagull stole French fries out of a guy's hand. It's like, bitch, that happens all the time. That's not an anomaly. Why is that something that you drew attention to? It just bugged me so much. The Banu Hakim. There's a Banu Hakim in this game who gives you side quests to assassinate people. He's like, I'm a Banu Hakim. I hang out here in this pawn shop. People bring me things to pawn, and I'm like, that guy's a dick. So I'll give you $5 to go murder him. That is not what first of all, no Camarilla vampire would be doing this. You would be killed for doing this. You're not allowed to just go kill people like human beings because you don't like them. that's against the rules, right? You have to have a reason. You generally have to have permission to just be offing people. You can't just be going around killing people. The fact that this Banu Hakim would ever do this or suggest it to someone else, or that I would agree, makes no sense. But also, a Banu... The cat is hitting her box of toys. The Banu Hakim in particular, their whole deal is that they are the protectors of humanity who are here to stop vampires who are being, like, overly cruel. So they're the last people who would be doing this. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Cat agrees. And the last thing which really just pissed me off is, I understand that there's no role-playing in this game, that this is not a role-playing game. But this is a linear story that is written by them, and they do have total control over how the NPCs behave, so they can make the NPCs behave however they want, and all the NPCs in this game treat you like a little shitbird, in spite of the fact that, as is established very early in the game, you're an elder, and not only an elder, but a famous elder. Like, randos who I run into in this game are like, oh, you're the nomad? I've heard the legends about you. Which means that the character you're playing is supposed to be on the level of, like, I don't know, Theo Bell or Beckett or some, Dracula. Some celebrity within the vampire world. And yet vampires talk shit to me all the time. This Ventrue, Lou, is constantly, like, bossing me around and telling me I'm a little bitch and condescending to me. There's even a scene where Fire says, like, I am older and more powerful than you. And it's like, yeah, I am. Why the fuck is this Ventrue talking to me this way? Why would I take this? You go to talk to the regent or magister, whatever she is, of the Tremere, and I'm playing a Tremere, and I walk in and this little British woman is, like, giving me lip. And I'm like, bitch, what the fuck? Like, I would tear you apart for this. Are you kidding me? Like, in the Tremere, this Tremere who claims that she holds up the old ways, a fucking legendary elder ass kicker of her clan shows up and she's, like, giving me back talk? That would never happen. It's like, it's inconceivable. And I guarantee that if you play a Ventrue who would show up there, Lou and Ryong and stuff would be still talking shit to you, even if you're in their own clan. Like, if you were an elder Ventrue who unquestionably has far more dignitas than them, I mean, I'm fucking from Constantinople and, like, burned down cities and everybody knows my name. You're the goddamn Prince of Seattle. Nobody gives a shit about you. These Ventrue would be crawling over themselves to kiss my ass. But there is nothing like that in this game. It's fine that, Tolly talks shit to me. Or that, whatever the guy, the Bruja guy talks shit to me. But, like, the fact that none of these characters have any level of respect towards you at all is really weird. If you want the character to be at the bottom of the totem pole, that's fine. Make the character a nobody. But if you want the character to be some special snowflake fuck-off elder, then you have to write the other characters to treat them that way. Otherwise, what's the point of doing that? What are you doing? I guess in conclusion, it's not a very good game. It has some strong points, but it is very flawed. And kind of the worst part about it is that it has, like, zero replayability. Like I cannot imagine wanting to go back and replay it. At the end of the game, they give you these little flashcards of, like, this thing happened because of this thing you did, and this other thing happened, like in Fallout or like in the end of RoboCop. At RoboCop, it'd be like, oh, this guy won the election for mayor because you supported him, and this guy got eaten by a snake. And if you think that I made that up, I did not. There is a event in RoboCop where a guy gets eaten by a snake, and playing the game does not make any more sense. It comes out of fucking nowhere. But it has those little title cards, they're like the thing you put at the end of a game when you want people to think that you made a role-playing game, but you didn't in any way, shape, or form. So you're like, yeah, no, trust me, it was a role-playing game. Putting those types of cards at the end of your game, like, I don't have a problem with that. But if that's the only thing that you have in the game that has any kind of impact, where consequences occur, is at the little end cards at the end of the game. That's like if you fed someone a pizza, and then at the end you handed them a fortune cookie, and we're like, there, you just ate a succulent Chinese meal. No, I fucking didn't, asshole. I ate a pizza. Don't lie to me. And like, as much as I don't want to blame the game for this, much like with Cyberpunk 2077, The thing that angers me most about this game is that it purports to be something it's not. It claims to be an RPG, and it's not. And as someone who likes role-playing games, plays role-playing games, and really isn't that into most other types of video games, that is something that constantly pisses me off, that I constantly encounter. There is just this weird obsession in the video game industry where everyone seems so desperate to tell everybody that the games that they're playing are role-playing games, but no one wants to actually make any. And it just drives me fucking nuts. So, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. I hope that lots of people buy this game and it does really well, so that it justifies them giving this license to someone else who maybe will make a good game out of the setting, because I would really like to see that. But I wouldn't recommend that anyone else be that person. Buy it when it goes on sale. So yeah, that's Bloodlines 2.